I really appreciate this. I love coming to club meetings, and especially where we can talk about things and learn things. Uh, one of my one of my pet peeves is that so many people get into the hobby, but not a lot of people help them today, and they're kind of like floating out at sea. And it was kind of different in my day. I got licensed in 1956, and I had some incredible Elmers, and they helped me through all of this. And ham radio has become my college education. It's guided me through several careers and been the basis for things that I do. And that's why I like to share some of this to let you know just how important it is for ham radio to be a big part of our lives. What I want to do is I'm going to start off with some PowerPoint things here that will explain a few things. You get a little history here for a couple of minutes of where I started and how I got here and all of that. But we're going to get into understanding some speech articulation, something you don't hear a lot about, and why not? And we're going to give some great demonstrations how important that is. As I say, I started in 1956. I was my station, the Harvey Wells you see is still on the air. It's over here behind me. I use it in the mornings on some AM nets. The SX99. I was strictly a technician. I was a technician for 17 years. And the band was open 24/7, 6 meters, and it was incredible to live through those days. And I was kind of silly because I thought it was like that all the time. Nope, it wasn't, of course. After about 10 years, the sunspot cycle turned and away she went. In 1959, I was very fortunate to meet up with a fellow on the air. He was a CBS engineer at KMOX here in St. Louis, which is about 20 miles across the Mississippi from me. And he taught me how to build things. And I was one of the first 10 single sideband stations in the U.S. In 1958. In 59, I built what you see there is a Johnson 6 and 2 Thunderbolt. And above my head is a Central Electronics 28, which I still have. And we converted that to 6 meters. But the antenna was from the J-Beam company in the UK. It was 128 elements on 2 meters. I also had a Telerex 15 element, 36 foot long, and up about 110 foot. Those are things that guided me, and we had an incredible time. Also, and this is very important, at the minute you might not wonder why I'm talking about this, but you'll discover that in 1952, my parents, and they were not wealthy people, but they bought me a B3 Hammond. This one's in a church console, but I learned to play the Hammond organ. And I did it by myself and listening to records of cinema players from the UK and from the American, George Wright, all those great organists. But in 1954, I got a job. I was 14 years old, and I'm making quite a bit of money playing in a restaurant on the weekends. I still went to high school. And in 1956, I became the organist at the Fox Theater in St. Louis. And that was an amazing time for me. Because what happened, we had, that organ hadn't been played in 20 years. And the organist there wanted me to help him voice and tune those pipes. Now, tuning is no big deal. Just about anybody could tune them on octave. But here's where I really learned my trade. We had to voice them. They had to be harmonically perfect. There's about 4,000 pipes in that organ from 1 inch out to 32 foot. But I show this. This is a neat arrangement of the trumpets. Yes, they were actual brass trumpets. There's about 72 of them in that organ. And the one beside the other, yes, they're different notes, but they had to sound the same. They had the same harmonic value. One couldn't be a little more bright. One couldn't be a more bassy. You had to have a structure throughout. Articulation. I learned how to listen. Listening was a big deal. I quit playing after about 12 years, and the ham radio in me got crazy. You see those two guys up on the stack. Those two large speakers were in the Fox, and they were throwing them away in 1968, and they gave them to me. Well, I'm a ham. We don't throw anything away. And it was wonderful. I built this crazy PA system. I didn't know. I was just doing it because I wasn't into rock and roll. I believe this or not, I am very serious about this. I hardly knew who the Beatles were because I was involved in the theater organ so deep, and just about everything I do, I go overboard. And I started taking organs, renting Hammond organs to the concert halls in St. Louis. And one time I brought some of this PA up, and they went nuts. The managers all were wanting me to go out with their groups. Well, that started a whole nother career for me, and we started building lots of other things. We had 35 people on our plant at one time building all these things. But that speaker I'm standing beside, that's an Electro Voice 30-inch, and I put it in a cabinet, and so many people, bass players, would use that around the country. They'd take it on tour. But those are remarkable times for me. And one of the reasons that I like to tell you about that is that it's what guided me into what we're doing in ham radio today. Yeah, we did all these great groups. And if you want to do a little history, what you see up in the left corner is Jerry Garcia. A very interesting thing about that, I got a call one day in 1970 from the Fox Theater. I hadn't been playing there, and they had given me the speakers, but they knew I had them. Said, "Hey, you still have those speakers?" And I said, "I do." And they said, "Well, talk to this guy." Handed the phone to Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. Go into the internet and put "The Night Rock and Roll Sound Was Born," and you'll discover that whole deal. They came into St. Louis, and their truck had been confiscated the night before by the DEA. they weren't supposed to be out of the state of California, their sound man. So the DEA and the FBI came in and took all their gear. Well, they came on to St. Louis. There were no cell phones. And when they got to the theater, there was no gear. So I brought my sound system up, and it changed the world. It really did. And you'll read that in that article, "The Night Rock and Roll Sound Was Born." I had no idea. I'm just a ham. I'm messing around with all this crazy stuff. Here's a guy that's never tasted beer. I've never ever had any kind of stupid drug, never smoked anything, and I'm running around with the biggest drug addicts in the world. But like Pete Townsend said, we became very dear friends with all of these people. If I couldn't be a friend to them, I didn't want to work with them because there were some real klutz out in those days. Pete always said, "Hey, leave him alone. He's got his soldering iron, and he makes it sound good, and he can drive the truck." And I did. Peter Frampton, I built the talk box for Joe Walsh down in the corner. Joe and I became very, very dear friends even through these years because we were hams. But we built the talk box for Rocky Mountain Way, and I'm sure you all know about that. I forgot to get this down. There's a whole story about the talk box, but this was a talk box that Joe and I made for Rocky Mountain, and it was a high-powered talk box. We had a 100-watt driver in it, and a tube, and all of the guitar sounds come out of that tube in your mouth, and you can make the guitar talk. I gave one to Peter Frampton because we did almost every concert Humble Pie did in their career. And they pulled Peter out as a solo act. And I gave him a talk box for Christmas in 1974. You know what happened to the rest of his career. It skyrocketed after that double set album. But we were just having fun, building stuff. I was very blessed to be able to work with Les Paul, Dolly Parton at a very young age. It was just great fun. That's all I can say about it. It was just great fun. But what drove all of this was ham radio, because I was able to do things. So we'll get into some of this now. But before I leave that, who's that group? Nobody ever guesses it. It's kind of fun. We did their first tour. That is ZZ Top without beards. And I love that picture. Billy Gibbons and I have become very good friends, and he's just such a cool guy, very well read, and he's just a great musician and a good friend. Well, one day in 1972, I get this phone call. I picked up the phone, and what can I do for you? Heil, are you there? I said, yes, sir. Who's this? This is Paul Klipsch. And I'm going, Paul Klipsch. Whoa. I would hope that some of you would know him. He was the father of the folded horn. He was actually the father, the leading person that brought hi-fi audio into homes. You see him there in his laboratory with a plexiglass K-horn. That was his famous speaker. Thing would do down into 15 and 20 cycles. It was amazing. And he called me and he said, you the guy that's got that 10,000 watt PA? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I want to come and see that. Okay. So he flew his Bonanza plane up to Marissa, Illinois. That's about 50 miles southeast of St. Louis in southern Illinois. Spent all day. And I was very worried before he got there. I figured, oh man, he's going to chop me off at the knees, because I'm not an engineer. I'm a ham. And I do have one ability that I learned early on, and that's how to listen. Not a lot of people know how to listen. People hear, but they don't listen. What's the difference? Listening is a mental process. You're dissecting all of what you're hearing. Hearing is just, oh, okay, there it is. I learned how to listen by voicing those pipes. And hopefully through all of these, I help some of you to learn to listen, closely dissect what you're hearing. We're going to get into this. Got some great demos. But Paul became a very good friend. And I was down at that picture you see on the right. That was an old telephone exchange building of AT&T. And he was given that and down in Hope, Arkansas, and that was his lab for years. What an incredible guy. What incredible things he taught me. Now check this out. He guided me to the studies of Bell Labs. Bell was referred to as the idea factory of the 1920s. They had the two companies, they merged, and it was called the Bell system, but Western Electric was the manufacturing arm of the system. They made the gear. There were 4,000 scientists. That's amazing. 4,000 scientists in the 1920s. They were assigned to the newly created Bell Telephone Labs, fully dedicated to researching how our ears worked and what frequencies were most important to understand the spoken word. I want you to stop, and we're going to go through that again. If I do anything today, this is the most important thing I want you to remember. They were dedicated to researching how our ears worked and what frequencies were most important to understand the spoken word. I'm talking about audio frequencies. And they got into this speech intelligence because it was a telephone company. And the room reverb, the frequency response, the sound pressure into the microphone, the distortion, all of that plays a very important part to what we're trying to do when we're communicating through our radios. And so many times there's nothing talked about. The other thing about it is the pattern. we use directional arrays to create a pattern for our signal, you know, Yagis and phased arrays and loops. But when I came along, I knew there was a problem. And so I went into building better microphones with that same type of pattern. And what it did, it improved the speech articulation. And again, we're not hearing or seeing this written, and it's so important. The other thing is power focus. You probably have never heard about power focus. If you look at that again, kind of looks like the pattern of an antenna, doesn't it? You put a Yagi up, that's what I want it to look like. I want all my signal to go in the direction that I have it pointed, because the rear doesn't allow anything to come in from the back. How did they do that? And they did it with phasing. Phasing. It's one of my wonderful, wonderful best subjects. Let's get into that a little bit, because of anything that we go through today, I want you to remember what we're doing about phasing. I have to change a microphone here. I could have done it with this, but I figured I might as well do it with the big dog. I plugged in the PR40. The PR40 is unlike any other microphone. I don't care what it is, $5,000 to $40. There's nothing like it, nothing. And I learned a long time ago about the importance of speech articulation and the directivity, as we just talked about. But microphones weren't doing that. Why? The problem we had is that microphones today that come with your radio, they're not built by the manufacturers of the radio. They don't build those. They have some OEM company do it. And it's really sad. They paint them the same color as the radio, and they fooled all of us for years. Oh, it's a matching microphone. No, it's not. It's just a thing that they throw in the box. And yeah, it works, but it doesn't work well. Well, Bill said I sound good in the morning. Uh-huh. You might sound good to Bill, but it's usually not there, and we're going to prove all that. Phasing is the most important thing that I can tell you about. Here's how I use that in this microphone, and no other microphone will do this. First of all, Joe Walsh asked me to do this back about 2005. He wanted me to build a microphone that I could do what you're seeing on the screen. I'm moving 180 degrees, but it doesn't change the audio. Huh. Figure that out, because every microphone you see guys using, they got to be crammed right here, and they can't move off, because if they move off, you won't hear them. Move off from mine. The PR40 allows you to have a little room. But here's where it gets really good. The microphone had to have great rear rejection, because there are monitors on the stage. There are monitors in a radio studio, in a TV studio. But that feeds back into here, and it causes feedback and all kinds of weird sounds. How do you do that? How do you get rid of that? Because with other microphones, you can't. You just have to arrange it right, turn the gain down. Well, I figured it out because of my antenna. You remember that 128 element antenna I had? Joe said, you remember that big antenna? Man, we come through you turn that around. I couldn't hear you. Do my microphone like that. So I did. And watch closely. When I talk into the back of this microphone, you're going to hear practically nothing. It's going to be 40 dB down. Oh, it still works, but not for me. It's gone. It's still working, but not back here. And I'm talking at the same level I did when we were here. It's an amazing feature of now all of our microphones. Here's how I did it. Again, the ham radio in me. Every microphone that you see other than ours, up at the voice coil, they have 4 little holes. These little holes, by the way, they're at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. That's not enough. That's for the entrance to the rear rejection audio. That's not enough. So what I did is we built a pedestal, which is actually a shock mount, and we set the element on top, but I opened the entire bottom of that element, not just 4 dizzy little holes like everybody else. So now all of the rear comes up that collection tube, as I call it, into the bottom 360 degrees, and we're getting all this incredible rear rejection. Getting a great semi-omni front. It's a microphone that has really, really taken hold. And one of the things here in America, and I know you hear it over there, is Sirius Radio. They just got rid of all their RE20s. They bought 250 PR40s. Why? Because in a radio studio, you have a glass between the host and the producer, and that glass just bounces signal right back to the microphone. But the PR40 don't care, doesn't hear you. So it's really becomes the microphone for broadcast podcasters. Wow, it is the podcast microphone. And so we're continuing to bring you things that mean something to us. And phasing is so, so important. While I'm on it, I'm going to play you a little clip. I love phased arrays. I didn't know about it. I knew about them, but I figured, oh my gosh, we're going to be talking a lot of money, a lot of space, but that's not true. I put up 75 meter, 2 dipoles. They were 65 foot apart, 65 foot high. They have to be equal, downlinks and all that. And here is a little video of what went on with that particular system. It's really, really something. And I'm so proud that I can bring you this and let you hear how important things are.
Antenna system consisting of a pair of coaxial dipoles mounted atop a pair of 55-foot telephone poles. We put them in an inverted V fashion, and the poles are 64 foot apart. These are 500 foot from the operating position, fed with RG213. In order to make the antennas directly from east to west, we use a delay line, a 43 foot here on 75 meters that's switched in and out of the driven element, either east or west. The downlead length is 126 foot. We take all of that coax, the downlead length, the 43 foot phasing delay line, and mounted them in a container, one of the plastic container boxes that we actually buried, and just the top of it shows. It's all sealed, so it's waterproof. But that's the way we get to switch all the components from 500 foot using one of the Amatron RCS 8V remote switches. It really works well. Take a listen to how we can get at least 10 to 20 dB difference east to west.
Like a lot of people do, mine's usually 3 inches or so. That's just after I get done mowing it. And I know, probably, we get a dry day. I'm gonna have to lay out there and mow. That's just all there is to it, because if you leave it that high, when it starts growing in it all, it gets looking ragged pretty quick. So it's to that point now, and.
The system really performs on weak signals. Take a listen as we switch to the direction they're coming from. Also note the preamplifier makes no difference on 75 meters on this signal. The preamp will, of course, make the meter read higher, but in many cases, the preamplifier does not cause the weak signal to be more readable. Check it out.
Hey, Sue. Yeah, well, I see they introduced a big display on it, and I don't know if that is their form of portable, or what that is. Your wire that hooked up to your computer, and then did you use your handheld to go through it?
Here's some great sounding AM stations, and we were getting about 20 dB front to back.
When the leaves drop off, I'll start using it. Daryl, purchasing digital audio recorder. I need to do that too. That'd be nice to have. And I mentioned to you too about your pictures with Fifi. I had sent that out to a few friends, and one of my cousins that lives.
Well, we were talking about you yesterday with Brian. Brian, you know, the thought was that you could locate that remote receiver out at Brian's QTH. And, of course, by the way, if you have it out of Brian's QTH, you could use the internet.
And run Cat 0 VUW, well, I'm going to need to go up on the hill and
Great things with just 2 dipoles. That's the important part, is that we're able to do things so easily to make that happen. And you would think it would be a lot of money, and no, it's just 2 dipoles, and I think it's 43-foot delay line. That's it. But I'm sure that you were able to see and hear the difference that it made. It's really amazing, and I'm happy to be able to bring that to my my club members, because these are things you can do. They're very easy. Well, I want to get a little bit more involved with some demonstrations of how our ears work. Paul Klipsch taught me so much, and one of the things that's so important is what happened to the telephone company. They put up 2 wires from the East Coast to the West Coast. Every 50 miles, they had a relay station that kept the voltage up and kept the frequency response up. But when they first turned on the system, now we're talking back in the 20s, this is kind of what they heard. And it was far, far from being articulate and understanding, because this is the telephone system. What is wrong with it? Because, let me do this again and get some articulation back. The deal is that it was exactly the same out there that was back here. Why didn't it sound good? So what they did is they put Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson on the project, and this is what they discovered. You do not ever want to forget this, and you want to visit it often because it means so much. Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson discovered that our ears are certainly not flat. Notice down at the 30, 40 dB level, like about what you're listening to there, you have big holes. But if the higher you go in the level, you get up around 100 dB, 110, it's almost flat. That's why kids like to listen to music loud, because they can hear the highs, they can hear the mid voices, they can hear the bass, because it's almost flat. And it's all about articulation. And the problem is that I never heard about this. I never read about this. And I really started studying it. And again, my great mentor, Paul Klipsch, got me into learning about this. You too, go into the, easy to do today, go to Google. Back in those days, we had to go to the library. And you want to learn about the Fletcher-Munson curve. And you want to make sure that your station is taking it to point, because you can increase your talk power a lot just by making simple adjustments. And what we have to look at is the frequency response. Too many lows make it real difficult to understand. I hear some of these guys and they're like, oh boy, ain't that great? I got all of this going on and on. But it's hard to understand the difference of an F and an S, a P and a B. because Fletcher and Munson, they told us, they figured it out. When you have some mid-range, it's much easier to understand. And what you want to look at is adjust your audio input from the microphone, hopefully. Get the right microphone, it'll help you. Keep a real nice rise in that mid-range. And then if you really want to get crazy with it, do that, roll off more lows, and you're going to be the DX king. Yeah, it doesn't sound good. Oh, heck no. I get a lot of people say, oh, that's the worst sounding microphone in the world. Our HC7s and so on, and we use in the DX headset. Not supposed to be pretty. It was supposed to let you cut through the pileups. And you can only do that when you roll off the lows hard and increase all you got in the mid-range. There's perfect example. This is no argument. You cannot argue with this. This is science of your ears and your brain. Your brain is amazing how it can figure this all out. So what you got to do is pay attention. And when you do that, you will be better off for it. I was off the air for 12 years. I was out on the rock and roll world. I lived in England. I was very, very happy about that. I lived 4 years at the Marble Arch Hotel with the Who. They weren't. I was working with them, and we had a rehearsal hall there. Worked with Jeff Beck and started a tour for him. We did a couple of years with Jeff. It was wonderful. I loved it, and I came back to radio, and it's like, what happened to my great Art Collins audio? What is going on? Well, you know what was going on. The matching microphone came along. So I figured I'm going to do something about that. And so I did. I built the EQ200. And I did an article for QST July 1982. And I had the diagram and how you could build it very easily. And I never intended to do that as far as a business, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd been off the road. I sold all my gear. I just got tired of the road, and all my good musicians were kind of lax about 1980. So I built this. Well, it went nuts. A lot of people just wanted to buy it. And so we called back some of our workers at the plant and started building thousands of the EQ200. And I know a lot of them went into the UK, so I'm sure some of you have it. And what is it? Well, it's a simple equalizer. 2 bands, the one filter, the low filter is sitting at 160 hertz. The high filter's at where? 2.5K, plus or minus 15 dB. You can increase or notch those 2 frequencies and adjust that curve as you saw a while ago. It was a great thing. And so then I started building microphone elements like that did it for you automatically. And that was a big deal for Heil Sound, because at that point we were taken really serious by the DXpeditions. And now almost every major DXpedition is using our headsets. This one especially. This is an amazing product. First of all, Paul Klipsch helped me. He wasn't here, but he passed on. But I used a lot of his science and physics in building this. All other headsets, including ours, the speakers right here. And if you have a hearing aid, you're in trouble, because it's going to feedback and it's going to sound bad. So what I did, I was able with this deep fiberglass cup to put the speaker way behind. I got about 3/4 inches of beautiful, nice, soft gel, and the speaker's way down in there. So when you put this up to your ear, your speaker's back here. It's not up here, and it won't feed back. There are so many guys come to me either by telephone, by talking to them on the air, or just, we get about 100 emails a day. And a lot of them are just so thrilled. They finally have something they can use. The other thing we did is something nobody else ever did. And we've been doing it for Oh, 12 years. It has phase reversal. What in the world is that? You heard how important phasing is. You can move things around. You can notch things out acoustically. So I have a little switch. And when you take the two earpieces out of phase, you got a little weakie back here, reverse the phase. He comes up front and the big guy goes back here. You actually can move acoustically the signals in your head. And it's remarkable. And if you don't have any of our headsets with that, you want to look at that. Waters and Stanton, Martin Lynch, Veda, all great dealers of ours. And we're able to help all of you create some better audio and, of course, a better signal. But, of course, a lot of this depends on your transmitter. You have to be able to set that DSP up. It depends on your voice characteristics. We know that. But it really depends on the microphone. Just because it's painted the same color, that doesn't mean it's matching. The color is. But then you got to figure out, I want it really high pitched for DX. You want it equal, level, nice, mellow rag chew. You have to do that. Whatever you need. The optimum settings are obtained by you listening to your own signal on another receiver. I don't like to use the monitor. The monitors on most radios aren't, they're okay, but sometimes they aren't exactly. But if you don't have another receiver, at least get you in the ballpark. If you have an ICOM radio, here's the settings. All from the Pro 1 all the way through to the 7610, 7300, they all have my two-band EQ in them. The bass is set to -3. The treble to +4 for DX. You've rolled off that low end and you punched up that mids. Yeah, I don't like to use compression, but you can if you want it. Don't use a lot of it. You don't need it. A lot of people think you do. No, you don't. The mic gain is set wherever you need it for the ALC meter to move. You see, the ALC meter is really misnomered. It shouldn't be labeled ALC. It should be labeled mic gain. The reason I know that is in around 1999, Dr. Inouye came to me, Inouye Communications, and wanted to know more about my EQ200. He sent me a picture of his station, and it had one of my gold lines and my EQ200. This was back about 98, 99. I was so impressed, so honored. Whoa. He discovered how important equalization was and wanted me to look through what they were going to do on their new series called the Pro 1. So all of them have that. Dr. Hasagawa from Yaesu came to me at a Dayton Hemvention a couple years later, and he said, we want to do it better. So I did a parametric for him. Now, yeah, you got some cool things you can do with parametric EQ. There's only one problem. Instead of 2 knobs that are partially set, you have 9 controls. So now what do? The problem is the manuals don't tell you very well. Well, we do. On our pages, we have you want to go to our website, especially under the support. There's about 50 pages, all things Yaesu, all things ICOM, all things Kenwood, all things Elecraft, so on, so on, so on, so on. And you want to make sure that you pay attention to all of that. Because what happens is you're like a boat out at sea without your GPS working. Here it is. It's very simple. There are 3 filters in that system. These are parametric, mean you can change the parameters of that. And what you do is you set the frequency, then you set the bandwidth, and then you set the notch or boost. set the frequency. Usually I'll set the first one about 160 hertz. I'll set the second one for at least 1 octave. That means that 160 will take it out an octave, which is 320 or 80. That'll cover all of that frequency. So you set the first one, 160, set the octave, and notch it. Get rid of that low end. The second one, I set it up somewhere around 1,000 cycles, depending on your voice and what you're doing again. And the same deal. You set it at 1,000 hertz, 1 octave of bandwidth, and you just a bit notch it, just a bit. But the most important is the third filter. Set it at 2.5K, 1 octave of bandwidth, and boost the heck out of it. And that's real simple. But again, a lot of guys don't get it talked about much. It's a parametric. You should know it. Well, no, we don't know it. Well, now you do, because it's very simple. And it's all on our pages. One thing you want to learn about is how to use the microphone. I get really, really bugged when I get on the air, and I'm on the air a lot, and I hear signals that sound like this. And they're not up on the microphone. Their microphone is down here. Well, no. Well, it's on my desk stand, and Bill said I sound just fine. Yeah, but you sound like you're in a bowling alley. So you gotta talk it up. You should never hear this and hear it loud. Never be more than 2 inches away from a microphone. And in some cases, you'll need to put a windscreen on it. We build really sophisticated windscreens in the PR40, the PR781. So you really don't need them. But if you have a lot of breath in your voice, sometimes more people exit air more than others. Make sure you use a windscreen. And I get so many guys talking about windscreens. They buy them at some dollar store or whatever. This is not just a piece of foam. You hear me? It looks like one, but it's not. It's acoustically transparent, but it is foam. What it does is reflects your puffs, your air somewhere else and not into the microphone element. So you want to pay attention. Our microphones all come with most of them come with that, but with a screen. But they're built into these. You're not hearing a lot of puffs. If you have a lot of low-end blast, why, take care of it. Well, I want to do one more thing here that's so important. We talked about phasing, and I'm going to change microphones. And if you haven't learned anything yet, you're never going to forget the next 5 minutes, ever, 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 ever. It's going to be the most important thing that I did today. And all of it leads up to this. But you will have proper education of what happens when we do things properly. I have 2 microphones, and they're exactly the same, different color. Now, and a little sidebar here that's kind of interesting. If you had a 500 watt amp and you're not making it because you got your matching microphone and it's not set up right, and nobody ever told you what it is. They just said you sound fine. So you go out and buy a kilowatt. You're going to spend a lot of money to do that. What are you going to gain if you double your power 3 dB? That's it. This is science. You're not going to argue with this. You double your power, 3 decibel. How loud is 3 dB? You're going to learn real quick. This is a very cool scientific experiment. I want to check that. Okay, here we go. And again, they're both the same. When I bring them up together, they're out of phase. Oh, I forgot one important thing. They're still in phase right now. Let's listen to what happens when you take two mics that are in phase and see if you can listen and hear 3 dB rise. Here it goes. 1, 2, 3. It didn't change. You know, we're talking about listening. It's a mental process. Close your eyes. Really, do this. See if you can hear 3 dB go away. This could be $1,000 going away. Here it goes on 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do it again. They are both together. 1, 2, 3. No. The human ear cannot detect 3 decibel. This is science. Oh, maybe in an echo chamber, you know, a multi-million-dollar room and all this kind of stuff, you might, but you certainly don't have that. None of us have that in our ham shacks. So what do? There's so many other ways that you can get more power, talk power, equalization, the right microphone, adjustments, not just raising the power. It's not all about S meters. It's about performance of the audio that you're trying to transmit. Now comes the goodie. I love sharing this with you guys and girls. I have a plug. Very special plug. I wired it backwards. Pin 2 is to 3 and 3 is to 2. Big deal, Heil. Still works. Still sounds exactly the same. So what's the big deal? It's out of phase. When I talk in this microphone, in phase, the element, the diaphragm moves down from my voice. When I do it here, it moves up. And when you put them together, they cancel. Check this out. Watch closely. Listen intently. 1, 2, 3. I'm talking. Yeah, and I'm talking at the same level. And they still work, but not together. They cancel. They cancel, but they're still working. But they're way down. Now, I wish we had about 2 hours. It's my favorite subject. All kinds of things. Think about, how does your notch filter work? How does that work? When you have some big station come on top of what you're listening to, you push a button. How's it work? The receiver takes that baby out of phase. He's gone. How does your Yagi work? When Dr. Yagi built a Yagi years ago, he put a driven element, and he figured out mathematically, didn't have computers, if he went out so far, he could get a little gain. Went out with another element, he could get more gain. But if he went behind the driven so far and so long, he could get 10, 15 dB of rejection, all because of phasing. It is so important. And just about everything we do has something to do with phasing. You have a handy talkie and you're moving around, all of a sudden the signal drops and you're going, well, I just, I got behind a tree or whatever. No, that's not it. Not it at all. The signal didn't drop. You're listening on HF and you hear signals fade. You think, well, those signals are fading. Why? Because they're changing polarity. Yes. And so you have to understand what's going on with these things. I did a test one time. I had up a vertical and I had up a quad on 10 meters and I had a switch. And when signals would fade, they didn't lose their strength. I switched to the vertical, they were right back again because signals change polarity. And so those are things that you can really understand and make things happen. It's so important. But we don't read about these things. We don't hear about these things. And that's what bugs me. But the other thing that I've been working on, and this is about 2 years of planning and working, what do you do about your receiver? Nobody's talking about it. Oh, there's some little products, but nothing of significant value. Let me change microphones. Okay. So what I did, I started working with a project and I built a parametric EQ for the receiver. And this thing, it has 3 filters. I set the frequency of the high at 6K, plus or minus 12 dB. I set the low at 160, plus or minus. But then the mids are parametric. You are the engineer and you can change what you need. You adjust the frequency with the button on the left that you see and in the little box. And the next is the gain. I usually set the gain up about 3 or 4 o'clock and then just sweep it until I get what I need to get that articulation elevated. The other 2 things that's going on with it, I have 2 headphone amplifiers, and it's great for an operator and a logger. Also have a record out, so you don't need a bunch of Y chords and stuff. You can record right from that, and you have a level for it. But back to the headphones. They're great for field days and de-expeditions, but you also can take one of those amps and drive the left side, take the other one, drive the right side. And it's the first product in amateur radio that absolutely was dedicated to those that have a hearing loss. And you adjust that balance for whatever you need with those 2 amplifiers. It's really cool. And again, there are things that kind of look like this and claim, but no, they're not this intricate. Then comes the speaker. I get really ticked about these things. Building speakers along with Paul Clipshaw those years and for all the tours and stuff. Learned a little bit about it. And I see these speakers up there for ham radio. First of all, everything out there, $10,000 to $400, they got a 1 or 2 watt amplifier in them at 10% distortion. That's ridiculous. You've never seen a spec sheet on any of the transceivers for its audio out because they're embarrassed. But they think it's okay. I got a little 50-cent speaker. They put it in a box, charge you a bunch of money, paint it the same color, everybody's happy. Bob Heil's not happy. I wasn't happy, and I did something about it big time. It's a Paul Clips design, our own 5-inch speaker in a tuned cavity with a 3-inch titanium tweeter. But if that's not enough, it has an amplifier, 25 watts at 0.1% distortion. This is an amazing speaker. And we're seeing them happen all over. Studios are buying them just for studio monitors. It's a wonderful product. And all of this is available from Waters and Stanton and some of the other dealers there in Nevada's got them. Martin Lynch has got several things. They got some good videos on it too. Let's see what's going on here today. I don't have all my antennas up here, so I just have a little dipole. See if okay, here we go. See if we can get a couple of guys talking, and I'll let you hear the little baby work. Okay, here we go.
In here in Tennessee at about a 5.9.
Let's see how you'll be able to see that okay if I get back out of the way.
I have
This is the way you hear him. And I'm going to
multi-band, and it's up about 25 feet in the air. It's strung north.
bring that mid-range up. Here's the way you hear
that
him.
I'm running, and that's about all I have.
That's too much low end. So what we do is we roll that off, bring up the mid-range. There's a wiki. And you can hear what I can do to the mids. Even that weak one. That's the way you hear him. Again, it's all about articulation. All about articulation. And I am so happy that we now have a product that's being used very widely because it's helping people that have hearing problems or whatever. And so we're happy about that. One thing I want to touch quickly is about ICOM. 1998, I started working with Dr. Inouye. He came to me and wanted me to help him with the equalizer. And of course, as I said, all the ICOMs today have my EQ200 in them. But he wanted me to work on a microphone because they buy OEM. They don't build it on. And we came up with our own electret because electrets are cheap and usually not very good quality. Well, we went around that one because we build our own. And I'm really excited about some of the products that we're doing specifically for ICOM because the ICOM is unique to all other radios. This doesn't make one good, one bad. The thing about it is that they have a low gain preamplifier, which means you got to use an active microphone or preamp into it or an electret. So we did. We built a microphone at his commission. I call it the ICM. It almost spells ICOM. It doesn't work on Kenwood, Yaesu, nothing but ICOM. And it really, really makes an ICOM come alive, and it's not very expensive. And it has our own cable, push-to-talk line, and our own connector. We also do it for our headsets. If it has IC after it, bingo, there's our new, this is a great new product that we have, and it's a boom set that a lot of guys, we have it double or single. A lot of guys that are doing a lot of portable work, they love this because it works so well into some of the smaller radios. And the dynamic version works on Yaesu, Kenwood, or all of that. So we're excited about being able to bring you some of those products. But here's a biggie. You ever look at that connector? That connector is a piece of junk. Really. It was designed in 1960s for the CB radios. And it's got a little bitty ring, and the cable clamps never work. You use it a couple of months or a year, and the first thing you know, it's all pulled loose. Put a piece of tape around it. So I took to the patch. I had to get permission from Foster, who owns the patent, to be able to do this because we changed it. We made it much better. The ring is very large, but the important part is what I do with the cable clamp. There's two of them, and they're molded exactly, tooled right for my cable. And the little one you see, that's the push-to-talk line coming back out for one of our hand switches or foot switches. But the cable is something special. I am so proud. We sell tens of thousands of feet of this to a lot of production houses, W2IHY. There's nothing like it. Trust me, nothing. Here's the deal. Everything you buy has got like 24, 26 gauge, little bitty stuff. My wire has two 18 gauge. And if you use it for balance, fine. If you just use one for unbalanced, no problem. But the shield is 100% silver. It solders like a dream. And then the push-to-talk lines. Now let's get real serious about this. The audio lines are AC. The push-to-talk are DC. And what do you do with the cable you have and everybody else has? They're all in the same shield. And the RFI is just right there for you. It's apparent that when you put those two together, you're going to have a problem. I solved so many RFI problems with guys just by changing the cable because the two 18 gauge push to talk is outside. It's very flexible. and the cable fits our cable clamp. You could tow your car with it. It's really super. And I'm really proud of that. It took me a long time to work with a couple of manufacturers that we work with, and I'm so happy. But these are things that we need to talk about. Nobody's doing it. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about is if you don't have this, I advise you to do that. Waters and Stanton, Martin Lynch, Nevada, they all have them, as well as all the houses online. Why? I didn't write it. I compiled notes from a lot of my mentors. And you go buy a handbook today, and you better have a degree, an engineering degree, because nobody's going to talk to you about what we need to talk about. But we're talking about simple little drawings. There's a phased array, by the way, how your Yagi works, how to switch things, how do you do these things? And in fact, every once in a while, I'll get somebody call and say, boy, those are really stupid drawings you have. Why don't you do better? No, these are actual drawings from people that guided me in 1956 and 7 and through the 60s. They're hand-drawn things. Why should I change them? I want you to share what taught me. The book's full of them. And that's something that you want to look into. I'm very proud of that book because it's helped so many. I have a lot of clubs. They'll buy 30 or 40 of them at a time and give them to all the new licensees or just the club or whatever. But again, it's not your regular book. That's the cool part of it. And if you're watching Ham Nation, you know, I'm a crazy builder. A little over a year ago, I started building things and doing stuff, and I built this little guy. What did I do with him? Ah, there he is. And it ended up becoming quite something. It's an AM 5-watt transmitter on 75 and 40 meters. And I wrote an article for QST January, a couple years ago, and it got the cover award. I didn't even know a cover award happened. And bingo, it started something. There's over 1,000 people that have built it. How do I know that? The parts suppliers, Antique Electronic in Mesa, Arizona, our MFJ, the parts are there. I have a lot of guys say, you're crazy, Heil. You can't get the parts and you're going to electrocute somebody. No, I'm going to teach everybody that hasn't built the same thing that I got taught in 1956, how to respect high voltage. That's the key. Respect it. Yeah, it'll kill you if you don't know what you're doing. Keep one hand in your pocket, rubber-soled shoes, and just don't put your fingers where there's a lot of high voltage. It's real simple. Well, this thing grew and grew and grew, and it grew to the point that it ended up, first of all, we built in modules. This is the power supply, about 400 volts. And this is the mic preamp. And I started that mic preamplifier. The microphone preamp is nothing but one of these guys. That's the front end of a Fender twin amplifier. I know a little bit about that. So I built that same thing, but I added EQ with it. Yes, there's the EQ 200. Even has a bright switch if you really want to get in. And a lot of times the signals aren't real strong with only 5 watts. And this is wonderful. Then we built the transmitter, the one I just showed you. But then I got crazy, and I used this entire thing for our 75 and 40 meters, but I used all of it, and now it's band switching, 160, 75, and 40 meters. And I hope you can see that on the monitors, but it was so much fun. There's 3 crystals, 5 watts, band switching. I even put a relay in here to control your receiver. And it's just been so much fun. Well, now I'm working on that. It's not quite finished, but it's a final with an 807. And the final is really cool. I'm so happy. The 807's been around for decades and decades, and it's in my Harvey wells, and they're around. Oh, you can still get all that. It's a 900 volt power supply. We got to knock that down a little bit, but there again, these are things we can teach how to do that. Pi network, and it's only going to be on 40 and 75, but it could be 160 if you want to build it. But that'll all be one that you built. And it's so much fun when you know you built it. So, as I say, there's so much to talk about, and I probably went way over my time. I hope I didn't bore you. I hope that you learned a few things. I'm always available to you. Send me an email. Be sure and send me an email. Don't be shy. No questions dumb the first time. Please, that's the way I learned it. I had some great Elmers, and I still do, by the way. I still have some wonderful guys that help me through building all this kind of stuff. And if I'm not sure, I contact them, and bingo, they help me. And I'm here for you guys. And I hope that you're watching Ham Nation there. You guys, unless you want to stay up to some crazy hour, it'll happen tonight at 8 o'clock Central Time. But it's on the replay. They're all up there. I think we're at almost 600 shows tonight. And we've been doing this for many, many years. And boy, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Just put Ham Nation into Google and you get to see them all. The first one was Joe Walsh and I, because I didn't know where that show was going. Leo Laporte invited me to do this, and I didn't know. And Joe wrote a theme for the show. So when you hear that wonderful guitar, that's Joe Walsh. He wrote the theme for Ham Nation. But we're so thrilled that we're able to help everybody with the many, many subjects. And in closing, I do have to say I'm so proud of this, all because of ham radio. A couple of years ago, I received an honorary PhD degree from Missouri University. I barely got through high school because I was playing the organ. I was making a lot of money. I didn't need to be in school. And I continued on for many years doing that before I got into the music industry. And of course, I've always been a ham throughout it, but we didn't start building things until the last 40 years. And my wife and I are very proud of all that. And last but not least, we're the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This was a huge honor, very, very big deal. The Rock Hall has all the wonderful artists in it, but they figured that the technicians helped get them there. And that picture, you'll see a microphone on the stand with a bunch of duct tape on it. That was one of Roger Daltrey's microphone. The first show I did with them, those were my microphones. And the first one, he did his little spinning deal and the microphone went flying. Well, wait a minute, I just lost a couple $100. So I solved it. I had wrapped duct tape around it. He liked it because when it came back to him, he could always see it. Little trivia for you there, but that mixer was built in England at IES. We were a sister company with IES. That's the first quad mixer, and we built it for Quadrophenia. And there's a lot of UK history sitting in that picture. That white speaker was one of 6 we used for the rear channels in the arenas for Quadrophenia, along with the big stuff you saw we went in front. But anyway, that's just a piece of what's going on with me, Heil Sound, and I really, really love this hobby. All the stuff you see over there, I've had some of it. Well, you can't see the Harvey Wells, but some of that, the 20A, I've had that from back in the 50s. And I love all that good old stuff, and I still operate it. And we're really, really happy and proud to be able to share some of this. What you see up above there are some speakers. There's that loft up above me here, because I told you, it might make you seasick here for a minute. However, there's what's in front of me. Nice big cinema organ, and I play it every day. And We do a show on Saturday night on WTWW that you guys can hear. Big shortwave station on 5 megs. It's 5.085. You go to 5 megs, you'll hear it. So we're really thrilled to be able to learn how to listen, what to do with all this stuff, and a lot of it comes from that organ. So we can fire that up sometime for you too. Any questions we have? Anything at all we can help you guys and gals with? Don't be shy.
Bob, that was absolutely brilliant. I speak for everybody. Really, really great introduction to so many different things for us. So, guys, I'm going to take up Bob's invitation there. Who wants to ask a question? I've got David, M0RIU first.
Hi, just echoing what Nick said there, Bob. Thanks very much. That was an amazing talk. I was writing questions down as you went along, and then as the talk developed, you actually answered most of them for me. So that was really useful. Thanks. I've got just two. Well, one that's a very quick one. You'll be able to say I've got a ProSet Elite with a HC6 element and a DX3000 from Yaesu. Should I be speaking into the element or across it?
Either way, I like to speak across them because you cut down on the breath blast, but it works either way.
Okay. And the next one was you've done a lot of talk about the rear rejection on the microphone that you're using now and the bandwidth and the response and all that. Can SSB communications use all of those features, or is that something that's for AM?
Oh, no, it's more for sideband, actually. I mean, AM, we want all the bandwidth we can get.
Want it all.
Yeah, we have to be careful because that's another thing that I mentioned, and I forgot to mention it there, but there is an AM window, and a lot of new guys don't know that. But there were wars in the 1950s when I came on. I was on 6 meters, though, so there wasn't wars there, but my gosh, down on 75, 40, I mean, the sideband had just started coming on. There weren't very many sidebanders, a lot of AMers. And the sidebanders would just plop down wherever. And I know of a couple of cases where a guy went, one of the sidebanders went to an AMer's house, and he had an axe. I'm serious. And he wanted to tell him, you are going to stay off of our frequency, da-da-da-da-da. So they all got together, grew up mentally, and formed an AM window, and it was called the Gentleman's Agreement. That lasted for a good 20 years, but it all faded away because all those guys passed away. Well, it's still there because some of us, I'm going to be 80 in October. I know I look like I'm 50 and act like I'm 12, but that's okay. That's another story. We run around with Keith Moon and the Who and all those wonderful UK guys, you know that. But anyway, that was a big deal, the Gentleman's Agreement. It's still there. AM from 3870 to 3890 on 75, 7290 to 7295 and 40 and so on. And a lot of guys are finally learning that, and really a lot of it through me because I'm really evangelizing that because it solves the problem. That's the deal. There's no reason for us to get upset with each other. My gosh, we got this much bandwidth on 75 meters. So move around and leave the AM. See, a lot of people don't understand. Most AM operations that it's out there, they are set in frequency with these little guys. There's a crystal. It's on 1985. I can't move it. You can with your sideband rig. So what you do is you reserve that window. And on 75 meters, as I say, we're crystal controlled, usually 3885, 3880. So move your VFO away from there. But anyway, that's the story. But no, all of this has more effect on single sideband than it does on AM. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thanks very much. Thank you. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, you have more?
I'm done. I'm sure there's lots of other people.
Okay.
Thank you. Richard, RBG.
Yeah, good evening, Bob. And as everyone said, thanks very much indeed. A couple of questions for you, please. Were you involved with the Eagles' Hell Freezes Over album when they reformed? That's question one. And question two, what's your current rig?
What is my what?
Your current radio.
Well, I'm very blessed working for these companies. They send me the newest radio, and I have, as you can see behind me, all kinds of things. And the 7300 is something really special. The 7610, but I like the 7851 is pretty cool. The Yaesu's, the new 101 is terrific, but they're all good. They all have their own little features. And wouldn't you like to be able to take apart from that one and the best part of that one and put them all in one? I know some companies say they do. Well, maybe they do. But I'll tell you what, you're going to have to go a long path to beat the 7300. It is just an amazing piece. And I know a lot of guys say, nope, it does a lot. So that's cool. But you want to know what my favorite is? You asked me my favorite? It's over there. There's a little ICO way down on the line there. And that little ICO, it was a CW novice transmitter. It was a CW novice transmitter. And then they had a modulator. You can see the tubes up behind it. It was a hi-fi amp that ICO made, had a pair of EL34s in it. And what I did for that, I mean, that was their modulator. But what I did with it, it had a 12AX7 mic or a crystal mic. But I come out of the Symmetrics, that's what down below, this guy right down here, that broadcast transmitter or a processor that all the AM and FM broadcast stations, they all have Symmetrics type processors. It's a 3-band parametric with limiting, compression, de-essing, all that stuff. I use the 3-band, plug one of my microphones into the processor and go through a transformer right into the grids of the EL34. And that little 35-pound transmitter will sit right beside a KW1 or any of the 20Vs. The audio is amazing. The receiver is very, very strange, but cool. It's a Mosley. You probably heard of Mosley as the antenna people. Well, for 2 years, back in 1962, they were building radios. Go to my QRZ page. There's a great thing on there about that. I met the guy. I found him here a few years back, right before he died. Give me all the history. It's really cool. You want to read about that. And that's what I use most of the time. And I drive a pair of EL34s and the Kenwood amplifier with it. But the 20A and its matching transmitter. But those are fun. But when I get over here on the other side, well, depends on what I do. It's either a 7300 or the 101 that's sitting back there. But I love all this stuff. And I'm very fortunate because I work for these guys, so I get to play with a lot of different radios. But I love this hobby. I can't wait to get better antennas up here. And this studio is only a couple of months old, so I'm really thrilled to be able to get back on the air when that happens.
Okay, thank you. And my second question, Bob, were you involved at all with the Eagles' comeback, Hell Freezes Over?
And what do you mean by that? I mean,
in the making of the CD of the comeback movie, the audio was fantastic. I just wondered if you were involved in it.
No, I didn't do any recording stuff. All of my stuff was live. And of course, Joe, I've been with Joe since the James Gang in 1969 or somewhere along in there. And he was really the thrust for me I didn't know where I was going with that. I just had this big PA I'd built, and his manager had heard it at one of the Kiel Auditorium. It was a country band, Dolly Parton and some of them. And he said, "I got this group. Would you like to go on tour?" And I'd never been on a tour before. And after the first show with the James Gang, Joe and I, we found out we were hams. Oh my gracious, what a great union that was, and it's still there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Gerald.
Yeah, hi there, Bob. Thank you. That was terrific. I couldn't look away. It was so interesting. I really appreciate it. A couple of quick questions, if I may. When you've got the beautiful audio speaker that you make, that can go onto all the type of radios and so on, but surely if it's 10% distortion on the radio to start with, can you take another input from somewhere else in the radio?
Nope. Here's the deal. If you really want to do it, you go into the DIN plug in the back. That's line level out, clean. Right. And that's just what I do here. You come out of the headphone amp, but at very low level, practically just so you could barely hear it, because that's not even a quarter of a watt. Then let my preamp take over from there. Where the distortion comes in any amplifier is when it's trying to drive a load, an 8 ohm speaker, and you have to run it up. So it's one of those things that you need to run it at real low levels. The distortion is nil.
All right, thank you. Just another one. What was the PA valve in that AM? What you made with the 80, 40, and 160 band valve radio? What was the valve you used in the PA stage?
We use a 6AG7 final and a 6V6 for the modulator.
Right. Okay. It's a bit similar to what I used when I first started in '63. Back onto Nick anyway. No, thank you.
For this little guy, this is really cool. Let's see if I can. If I don't drag everything down here, I'm really excited about this. Just back over here. This was the Amico. Remember this? It was a little novice transmitter. You built as a novice, right? Well, it came back. A fellow from, I think he's from Yugoslavia, bought the name and all of this and the rights. And this is a brand new one. I just put it together here not too long ago. And it's a kit form. And it's exactly what it was in those days. And I did, and this, you can go back and search it on Ham Nation. This really freaked him out when I did it, because I taught guys how to use Greenlee punches, if anybody remembers those. I still use them. So I took the rig, got it going, and I took a Greenlee punch and I put an 8-pin plug in the back of it. And then I can plug in my modulator, and it's now on AM. So if you don't have fun in this hobby, you really shouldn't do it. Take up bowling or golf or something else. But those are all fun projects of building things, and they're still out there, let me tell you.
Sounds great.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Gerald. Right. Anyone else with a question for Bob? Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, okay. This is not amateur radio. This is good evening, Bob. Absolutely superb presentation. I'm talking about pure sound. Many years ago, before I went to, I just left school, about 17-year-old, and I started doing some tests on cassette tapes to see which was the best tape for the type of music that I used to like to play. And the interesting thing was, one of the particular tapes, and well, you'll know it was a TDK tape. I think it was an audio. And if you recorded a certain type of music onto that tape, and then you played it back, we found out was that particular tape could handle frequencies which were above our hearing at that time.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way we could hear certain things.
Yeah.
So we recorded various things with and without those frequencies that you couldn't hear.
Yep. Yep.
Now, I know you're going to tell me now which sounded the best.
Whatever's natural.
Yeah, but how is it when something that you can't hear is there recorded on the tape, and then but that sounds better than certain aspects that are not recorded on the tape because they're a lower frequency. If you understand what I mean.
Not quite. I mean, it is
Right.
Are you recording this from? What was the original? Did you record the music from an orchestra or what?
No, it was well. Sometimes it depended on certain music we used to use, but if this particular tape, this TDK audio, it would actually record frequencies that we couldn't actually hear.
Right.
And when we listen to the playback of the music, sorry. So when we listen to the playback of the music, the one that was recorded with the sound that technically we couldn't hear sounded better than the one that was recorded.
I got it. Yeah, well, thank you. This is a great question. I finally woke up. Duh. Remember what I talked about harmonics?
Yep.
Hello? That's why you really have to pay attention, because harmonics, even though you can't hear it, it comes back harmonically into the region you can hear, and it affects. And I learned that from voicing those pipes, and I still do that once in a while, voicing friends' pipe organs, and it's the same deal. I know exactly now. I finally got what you want. You're talking about frequencies that are way out here that you can't hear, but they affect harmonically, because harmonics are, as you know, you're on or off octaves, and they do affect. And that's why a lot of people will say, well, I need a darn EQ. You need it to increase that mid-range, but you also need it so that things that are outside can come in and fortify that. It's all about harmonics. It's all about speech articulation. Great question. I'm glad you asked that. I finally woke up.
Thanks very much for that, Bob. Yeah, that's well answered, and I'm pleased that you're the person that's actually explained it a lot better than it was explained many years ago.
See if I can make it dizzy. There's my TAC. I use that quite often. I have hundreds of tapes. A lot of tapes when I was playing actively, playing the organ nightly in restaurants and at the theater. I would record them and I would get to play. Okay, well, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. You're very kind.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Bob. Right. Anyone else got a question for Bob? Yes, Richard, GCX.
You said before when you had that 16-meter Yagi array that you used phasing harnesses. Have you ever thought of using power dividers?
No, I never did any of that.
Because I've got one here. That's the 77s one that I made in the late 70s. And when we had a contest once, I made 3 for 2 meters. I made a 1 into 2, and then I made 2 into 4.
Yeah.
And they worked really well. We worked from Leeds in them days to Cornwall with an IC 202 on flat band conditions. But we had 8-9 element tonners on 2 scaffold poles, which is about 50 foot high. Yeah. But one of the reasons that prompted me to make this, because it was quicker to make one of these than to make a load of phasing harnesses.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Do you think phasing harnesses are better than power dividers?
The reason I got that is in 1959, I got a call from Bob Drake of the Drake Company up over my shoulder. And I was amazed. I'm a 19-year-old kid. It was a movie star calling me. I was Bob Drake. Wow. He said, well, I want to invite you to one of our meetings. We do a meeting once a year. And we want you to come and talk to us about that single sideband station you've built. Because I was one of the first 10. I didn't know that at the time, but I found out later that I was, only because of that CBS engineer guiding me through. But anyway, he said, we hold this once a year, and we'd like for you to come. It was in Dayton, Ohio. It was downtown Dayton in the Biltmore Hotel. There were 600 people there, and they took all the furniture out of one of the floors. And each room, there was the Collins room, the Hallicrafter room, the Central Electronics room, so on and so on. And they were all there. Bill Halligan of Hallicrafters, Wes Shum from Central Electronics. I mean, I was going crazy, everyone. I'm just a young kid from a little town in Marissa, Illinois, and I'm thrust into this room with all of these giants that I had read about. And they were just great guys. And then this one guy came to me after I did a presentation on how we put that sideband rig together for 6 and 2. And he said, I would like to have you help us. We have an antenna and we need somebody on 2 meters that's got a lot of power. Well, that Johnson Thunderbolt would do it. And that was the J-Beam company from England. And they sent that thing over here. It had all the power dividers already made up. All we had to do was put it up. And a good friend who was in the construction business that brought a crane over. And I had the most gracious parents in the world. I mean, they did so much for me, and no was not in their vocabulary. When I was 18, put a 10-foot room with a pair of Telerexes, 36 foot long, 1 on 2, 1 on 6. And then here I come along a couple years later in a spare lot beside us and put up this 128 element. It was crazy, but they knew that I was learning things. But I really admire the fact that the J-Beam company had advised me to do that. By the way, that was the one of the original Daytons, and in 1964 it moved out to Hara Arena that now is no longer. But anyway, little history.
One other thing.
Yeah.
The VU meter behind you on your left, where did you get that from? Because it's ginormous.
You're talking about that guy?
No, higher up. The one there with the green and yellow, that's the one, yeah.
That's a meter from Mike Durow. And just about every radio station you go into today's got a Durow meter. It's a loudness meter. And they can set their levels and stuff by that. And, I don't really, once in a while when I need some serious measurement, that's the guy. But usually it just sits there and I don't even know it's just the output of the mixer right now. And so, yeah, just kind of fun. But it does have a purpose when I need to really find out what's going on. So does the meter below it. That's an interesting meter. That meter is, it's a triplet, 601, but it'll measure down to -60, which is mic level. And that's kind of a neat thing that I use a lot, and I've had it for years and years. All fun stuff.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you.
Darren.
Yeah, good evening, Bob, and thanks for a wonderful talk. Very, very interesting. I shall certainly be watching it back again. I have 3 of your headsets, which I use all the time, and one of the main microphones, I can't remember, it's 781 or 871, you'll know the one I'm meaning. Yeah. I use the headset mainly with the 7800, the ICOM, and I always use it in the standard mode rather than the DX mode. And even in contests, I'm absolutely flabbergasted by the amount of people who say how good the audio is. Even in a contest, for somebody to bother to say that when everybody normally it's a 5 and 9 port can only be down to yourself. I always follow your instructions and your settings, and I found them to be absolutely fantastic. However, my main question is, what's the best way to contact you yourself? I have a small problem with my headset. I need a part replacement part, and the local dealers just don't want to know. Back to you.
Oh, well, that's easy. First of all, I have to tell you, of all the microphones that I built for ham radio, this is it. There is no question, the PR781.
Yeah, that's the one.
Just told, I have never heard a PR781 review. That's bad. They're all good. The only ones that are people that don't set it up right or try to use it on some funky transmitter or whatever. Anyway, it's incredible. And it's a PR40 that I rolled the low end off. It has all those same rear rejection. In fact, you can move it around. It's all there, but it's just a smaller footprint. And we don't need all that big stuff on ham radio. So I appreciate that. And anytime, I want everybody to know this, anytime you have anything you want to ask, don't be shy. No questions dumb the first time. Call me on email. That's the best way to catch me is on email. I will come back to you. And if we need to get more serious, we'll get on Skype. And I just love corresponding with everybody, and I can help you. And don't be afraid. Every piece and part is available. I've got a wonderful gal that's been with me 26 years. She's my service tech. And so we can help. So if you need parts, send me an email. I'll get back to you. I really will. Sometime it might take me a day or two, but I get there and we'll go from there.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Ask a question.
Cheers, Darren. Right, who was that? Go far away.
It's me, Robin. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, all right, Robin.
Hi, Bob. This is Robin, G1MHU. We met a few times at Orlando Hamcation and stuff. I bought one of the parametric receive audio systems,
right,
but it seems to suffer quite badly from RF interference. Do you have any advice of where the best place to fit filters are for that device to stop it from getting so much hum and noise from RF?
Have you grounded all the pieces?
Yep.
You grounded the amplifier plate, you grounded the chassis to your ground?
Yeah. And the speaker, and yeah, so yeah.
Ferrite beads here and there. Something else too that I find once in a while. Take your, you have an Astron or some good power supply, not a switching supply?
Yeah, it's a Diamond GSV 3000, which is a linear.
Plug that, use that for your 12 volts.
Okay, instead of the power supply that comes with it, yeah.
I've had a few wall warts that get a little crazy, but try that. That's what I do.
Okay, it came shipped with a power supply, so you're saying, yeah, don't use that and try shipping it, try running it from the power supply from main shaft supply. Yeah, I'll try that.
Try that and send me an email. It's real simple. K9EID at
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we met at Hamcation a couple of times. There's a few bits of kit I've got of yours and stuff. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Robin. Great.
Yeah, no problem, Bob. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robin. Right. Anyone else a question for Bob before we let him go? Ken?
Yes, please. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Right. Firstly, Bob, fantastic that was. And I've learned quite a lot there. But my first question is, what's happened to the HC4 and the HC5 inserts, which were around 20 years ago, and I don't seem to be able to find anything about them now. So that's question. Yeah, that's first question.
Cost of tooling on them, and the tooling was done, oh my gosh, 30 years ago. And to be able to do the tooling today, you would have to pay about $150 for the element. And I said, ain't gonna happen. That was a really unique thing, but I did it with the HC7, and the HC7 is wonderful. In fact, we're just getting ready to package that by itself. It's used in our wonderful Pro Set 7, and all the D-Expedition guys, they've just gone crazy. This thing has interchangeable headsets because we have an IC element for the ICOMs. It's 2 screws and unplug it. But this has the dynamic, and we also have for the broadcast sports guys. But yeah, the HC7 is I think it's better. It's a little bit better, but it sure sounds good. So it's around.
Oh, okay. I use an IC Pro headset with an ICOM radio, an old ICOM radio, ICOM 46.
Yeah.
However, I also use a Yaesu radio, and it's fairly new, this one. It's the FT450. Now, I know that you spoke a bit about ICOM headsets for ICOM radios, but do you have an equivalent that would work with Yaesu? Because what I'm using with a Yaesu radio at the moment to give me that extra torque power over and above the
Uh-oh. Did we freeze up? Oh, I think we did. Oh my. Are we still there? Oh no. Oh no.
Are you back with us yet, Ken?
Have you heard of them?
Now, Ken, we missed all that. Can you repeat it? You froze up, I'm afraid.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. I said I use the ICOM headset with the ICOM radio, but I've also got a Yaesu FT450D, fairly new radio. Now, do you have a headset that actually is that the one? That's the one for the Yaesu.
With the dynamic out HC7 in it.
There you go. Well, that answers probably that question, because I'm using something called an Adonis mic, which is probably like a competitor of your microphone. You've probably heard of it, very high compression level. But it picks up every bit of noise in the room. I can hear a pin drop with this microphone, and I think it's probably not the best.
Yeah. What is it?
It's an Adonis, ADONIS.
We don't see that in America, so I don't know what it is.
No, well, that's that one then. And I think that's about. Oh, you mentioned that phase reversal switch. Fantastic. I use that. That is something else. You pick stuff out. Yeah.
I'm very, very proud of that, because it's helped so many de-expeditions. And the other thing about it, there's so many things it does, I should think. When you're doing these long 10, 12-hour runs, every hour or so, it sounds different if you reverse the phase, and the fatigue of listening hour after helps you. It just kind of like massages your ears, and I think you know what I'm talking about. It's really cool. And I'm very proud to be able to give that to all the operators. So thanks a lot for using our stuff. And if you have any questions, email me. Don't be shy.
Yeah. If I was to use ferrite beads on the lead,
yeah,
because I do suffer with a little bit of feedback, where would those ferrite beads go? Because I've heard various reports, and I think they should go on the radio end of the lead, not the headphone set, not the microphone set.
Hit the connector. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much there, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with a question for Bob?
Yeah, quick one.
John. Go on, John.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you very much for the talk, Bob. Very interesting. But I was working, 50 years ago on radio paging systems, which had desperately poor audio systems on the receiver. And we came to almost exactly the same conclusions as yourself for intelligibility. Bass cut. What we used was a Vogad device, voice-operated gain adjusting device, which is a Plessy IC, which had a wide range compressor and a hang AGC system. So if you talked it up, pause, it didn't bring all the background noise up, and about 6 dBs of clipping. Right. And that was very effective, because we got stuck with untrained operators who would either swallow the microphone or talk like that, and it coped with all of it. But frequency response, much as you said.
Yeah. I'm really not tuned into what you're doing exactly. So you might.
Well, it had paging system operator sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
Telephone exchange one hand, page somebody on the pocket pager, send them a message. They were not good operators, and we found to get maximum intelligibility, we had almost exactly the same conclusions you came to, which is basically bass cut.
Yeah.
Cut out the high frequency, which we had to anyway for the legal requirements. We used a compressor, with the Hang AGC system, and that was very effective.
Yeah, it's all science.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about all this, John. Everything I've said today is not Bob Heil. It's not Heil.
No.
It's science. And I learned it all as a young kid through some incredible mentors. And I don't see it today. That's what bugs me, and why I write some of these books. That we got to share this science because it's not out there. You buy these handbooks and they're about this thick, and if you don't have a degree in engineering, you might as well use it for a doorstop. It's really.
I know what you mean, and there's nothing to build in them either.
Nope. Well, you're doing it. So that's.
Yeah, thanks very much. Anyway, and good night.
Okay, thank you, John. Right, anyone else with a question for Bob? Terry?
Yes, hello, Bob. Good evening, and good evening, world. Thanks for that. A very enjoyable hour or two I've spent listening. I see you're talking about articulation and frequency response and what have you. It does puzzle me why we have 8-band parametric equalizers on the amateur market for communications. Any comments on that, please?
Give that man a $100 bill. Would you do that, Nick? I say that all the time. In fact, I get guys come to me, hey, I got me a 31 band, boy. It's 31 bands. I bought it at the music shop. What are you going to do with more than 3 bands? Tell me. Well, I use it all. It all works. Well, they're dreaming, lying, or they just don't listen, because we only need that small 300 to maybe 2,500 cycles. That's it. So I can see maybe 4 bands I could, but you can do it with 2. But Julius Jones has done a wonderful thing with his 8-band. It kind of overlaps some of them, and it's easier to adjust. But these things where I see these, they're doing these ridiculous 30 bands and so on. No, that's not for what we're doing here. So they miss it all. But yeah, thanks for your question. That was cool.
I have a question.
Thanks for the $100.
Okay, Terry, on its way to you. Okay. Anyone else got a question before we call it a night?
I have an idea.
Yes, go on, far away.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, you know you've done the parametric receive audio system. How about building one that's got a built-in transmit audio equalization system as well, so that you can use any Heil dynamic microphone with any radio, and you can give, people can tweak the audio in any way they want, but without these silly things like echo and whatever. But please do include a noise gate.
Well, I've thought about it several times, but all the radios today already have EQ, unless you got some real oldies, and there's not a big market. I mean, in the manufacturing, you can't just build a few dozen, a few hundred. You really got to get up to thousands to get the price of the quantity of the parts down. Otherwise, it would cost a lot of money to do. And I agree with you. I'd like to do that, but I don't think it would be a feasible thing with all of the things we have today. And if not, Julius Jones, WHY. Really, you can't beat his price, and price really has no bearing in it. The production his stuff is great. He's a good guy. So that's my answer to that. It's not a very good answer for what you're looking for. And I appreciate that. It'd be nice to maybe even put this little guy back on the market, but
yep.
Why? Because all of that's there. I don't know. We toy with it all the time. So one of these days I might surprise you.
Well, if you do, send me one, and I'll go, I promoted this guy to do it.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you, Robin. Right, anyone else with a final question for Bob before we call it a night?
I would like to appreciate the homebrew stuff with valves behind you, Rob. All power to your elbow.
Are you building some things?
No, all the stuff that you've shown us behind you. Excellent stuff.
Yeah. And what was the question? I missed it.
No, it's not a question. It's a note of appreciation, Bob.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, get out your soldering iron and make it happen. If you go to my website, heilsound.com, and you really should do that anyway. So much going on there. But on the homepage of the ham radio, down 3 or 4 paragraphs, is a whole thing called Pine Board. When you click that, you're going to get about 60 pages. All of the drawings, all the videos and stuff we did are all there on the Pine Board. And it's just wonderful stuff. And you might want to check that all out. Let's see if I got one of the things that really was helpful to all of us. About 2 weeks after I started that project, I'm hand drawing these things and I'm terrible at it. I get this email from a guy, Gene, WD4IQN in Atlanta. And he's a retired General Motors artist. And he started drawing the diagrams for it. And you will discover when you go to heilsound.com and drop down and hit the Pine Board, you'll see all of his fabulous drawings. Well, he just did this one the other day for the new power supply. Look at that drawing. You don't need a schematic. You lay it out and build it. That's just an exact picture of what that power supply is. And that's why so many people were able to build the Pine Board, because we had drawings from Gene. And he's a marvelous guy, and we're very excited to have him help us with all that. So you'll catch all of that. But I hope you get to join us with building. It's so much fun.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks again for that, Terry. I would like Bob to thank you very much indeed for your contribution this evening. Can we show, first of all, our appreciation to Bob? It was absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? So thank you.
Well, thanks for putting this together, and let's do more. There's all kinds of little things that I like to do, just side notes once you have this and you know the history and all that. A lot of things we can do. Just, you know, some of the antennas and crazy stuff, but yeah, we can always do it. So you're looking for a program, let's do it. Just open up. See, it's so good today with Zoom. Isn't this great? Thanks, everybody. I thank you for your participation today and tonight to you, by the way. I hope all of you are staying safe and all this craziness. And we'll talk to you either on the air or through the old Zoom or, hey, on the other screen of Ham Nation sometime. Thanks very much, Nick, for setting this up. I appreciate it very, very much.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you, Bob. And another round of applause. Thank you, Darren. Just in terms of a bit of advertising for Denby Dale's next meeting, we've got another speaker from across the pond next week. We've got Dan Robinchek, Kilo Bravo 6 November uniform, who is going to be talking to us about having fun with Morse code. So he's written quite a bit of stuff. I know at least one of our members has bought his little book on Morse code, and he's also does a lot of other work as well. So looking forward to that. We've got a series of people coming up, but one of those I just want to mention to Bob before he disappears. I'm doing some work with the GQRP Club to put their convention this year online. So on the 5th and 6th of September, no convention, obviously, like Dayton, had to be cancelled. We're going to put it online. And we've just been running a survey, a big survey of people across the world, in fact, about what would they like us to do. One of the things we want to do is to run a build-a-thon online, or several build-a-thons online with people building stuff. And we've got some ideas. But the second or third most popular idea was building what you call a tube, what we call a valve transmitter. Everyone wants to build a valve transmitter now. So if it doesn't happen in this build-a-thon, it's something that I know we do want to emulate what you've done there. Absolutely, exactly. Extremely popular.
Yep.
So on that note, one final point to you, Bob, before you disappear. Here in South Yorkshire, and Denby Dale is 3 miles up the road in West Yorkshire, but I live in a small town called Penistone, and we've got a cinema called the Penistone Paramount, which has got one of the only working theatre organs in this country that is still in regular use here in the cinema. It's the original Paramount Compton organ that is in use. It got rescued from Birmingham from when a theatre was being pulled down, and they rebuilt the cinema here, which also runs live events in this tiny town. It's a town of 20,000 people. The cinema's 300 yards down the road from where I live. And when you started talking about your fantastic organ, it reminded me of looking at that organ in our cinema here. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's a bit of history over here in England.
How about if I open another microphone and I spend about 2 more minutes and I'll play you out with a couple of tunes on the old organ.
Oh, brilliant.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
There is another theatre organ in Elland, by the way, in the theatre, in the cinema there. I can't remember what the cinema's called, but I went with my mate to watch Schindler's List when it first came out, so it's that long since. Then they had a couple that was done instead of the music that they normally put on cinemas. They had organ. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
You ready for you, Bob?
Wow, look at that. More buttons than a radio.
Put Bob up full screen.
He's going to come on in a second. There we go.
I think we'd have to have everybody else muted for Bob to take control and full screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has anybody ever heard the Wurlitzer at Blackpool?
Oh, yes.
You're muted, Bob.
Hang on, I'll to do it. Bob, your audio is unmuted at the moment.
I guess he's going to unmute himself. I've
So,
met him a few times.
yeah, he's done it. No, he's done it, Robin.
Okay.
Absolutely brilliant.
I never know how it's going to work. So there you go.
Absolute magic.
I don't, I should spend more time. I don't know how it sounds and so on because I have regular microphones to record, but I didn't have them on that time. Well, this has been really fun. Let's do it again. And call me via email, Skype, whatever, and let's talk if you need anything at all. I's your guy.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you very much, Bob. Good evening to you. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
And